I think there's a reason that so many of us cling to control. It feels safe. It gives us this illusion of order in a world that's unpredictable. It lets us decide who gets close and how much they get to see. And if we're honest, control also gives us power in places that we once used to feel powerless. But the more we depend on control, the less confident we actually become, I think. Because control isn't rooted in peace. Control is rooted in fear. It's what we use when we don't trust ourselves enough to surrender. And so we call it leadership. We call it discipline. We call it direction. But beneath all of this, I think most of us are just afraid. Afraid to feel, afraid to fail, afraid to be seen without the armor that the control provides. Here at Uber Bintegers, we don't romanticize control. We want to rewire it, because confidence isn't about how loud you speak. It's about how quiet your spirit stays when everything around you feels so uncertain. And integrity gives you that steadiness that control often fakes, whereas intimacy is what turns fear into fluency. Confidence without connection is just a pretty form of domination. But let's be real, control feels good, doesn't it? It feels like clarity. It feels like certainty. But really, it's a performance. Control says, if I can manage every outcome, then I'll never feel small again. Confidence says, even if I fail, I can still be whole. Control needs proof, whereas confidence needs your presence. See, the one feeds your ego, whereas the other one feeds your peace. So many of us, I think, mistake control for confidence because that's what we were modeled all along. We watched fathers and pastors and bosses and coaches, men who led through pressure instead of presence, and they barked orders and commanded and corrected and called all this strength, but that wasn't strength. It was survival in disguise. They were terrified of the chaos, but it's because no one ever taught them how to lead through connection. And now we repeat the same patterns through micromanaging relationships that we're in and dominating conversations that we engage in and mistaking compliance for respect. And we don't just realize that we're creating the same fear that once was raised in us, because control really is like camouflage. It covers insecurity with intensity. It hides unhealed wounds behind this illusion of certainty. And that's why I think so many men struggle with relationships, because real connection doesn't bend to control. You can't schedule intimacy. You can't force trust. You can't choreograph vulnerability. But control, it keeps trying. It keeps negotiating safety by building walls, by predicting emotions, and by avoiding these situations that we can't dominate. And so we think that we're being smart, but really we're being scared. And fear does not go away when you master control. It just changes outfits, if you will. It hides behind perfectionism or success or even spirituality. See, you can use control to hide anywhere, basically. But the more you rely on control, the more fragile your peace becomes. Because peace cannot survive in a mind that needs everything managed, right? True confidence doesn't come from knowing everything will go right. It comes from knowing that you'll stay aligned, even when it doesn't. So, here's how you can tell if control is running your life. Perhaps you overthink every move, or you replay every conversation, or you take responsibility for other people's emotions, and you can't resist unless, well, it's hard for you to rest unless everything feels like it's handled. And so you plan intimacy like a to-do list, and then you wonder why nothing feels alive, right? That's not confidence. That's fear in a business suit. Confidence doesn't need to control outcomes. It influences outcomes through authenticity. And authenticity doesn't need any strategy. It just needs sincerity. Men who live from control are often exhausted because they never get to exhale. They live in this constant state of vigilance, scanning and assessing and anticipating. And it's not leadership, it's hypervigilance. And the body keeps score, doesn't it? And that's why we burn out. That's why we snap at small things. That's why rest feels unsafe, because stillness exposes how little peace control has actually given us. You can't hold love and control at the same time. See, love asks for openness, and control demands obedience. Love thrives on freedom, and control just suffocates it. And yet so many of us keep trying to merge the two, to have intimacy on our terms. Like we want our partners to feel safe, but not enough to challenge us, right? We want to be admired, but not questioned. We want to be desired, but not depended on. And that's not love. That's emotional management disguised as maturity. Real confidence doesn't control people. It calibrates to truth. It doesn't manipulate. It magnetizes. It's the quiet knowing that even if things change, you're still going to be rooted. See, confidence is not the absence of fear. Confidence is the willingness to feel it without flinching. It's looking chaos in the eye and saying, you're welcome here too. And that's why confident men are safe men, because they're not afraid of emotion or conversation or even correction. And they don't need control to stay grounded. So, if this message feels somewhat uncomfortable, I would say that's a good thing. It means that the control that you thought was protecting you is actually costing you. It's costing you depth. It's perhaps costing you rest. It's costing you the kind of peace that only comes from surrender. And surrender is not submission. Surrender is trust. It's letting go, not of power, but of pretense. It's realizing that letting life touch you doesn't make you weak, it makes you whole. And that's the space that we explore inside In the Ashes of the Alpha Male, a course on my website where we learn the difference between confidence that's embodied and control that's performed. So this foundational course will help you recognize the fear patterns behind your control mechanisms, the habits that came from insecurity perhaps, and not from intention. And we'll do a deep dive in this course where we'll help you build your inner steadiness without needing external dominance. So you can find that course at Bintegers.com. Remember, it's not about losing leadership, it's about learning how to lead without losing yourself. But when a man starts healing his need for control, something beautiful begins to happen. And that's, he stops managing people and now he starts meeting them. He stops analyzing everything and starts instead aligning with what's true. And he becomes safe. Not because he's perfect, but because he's present. And that's the kind of leadership I think that we need more of in this world. Not for more control, but for more calm, not more confidence that's built on ego, but more confidence that's built on integrity. See, every system that's built on domination eventually collapses because control cannot sustain life. And that includes these emotional systems. When we control too much, we suffocate what was actually meant to grow. Relationships will lose oxygen, communities will lose empathy, men will lose themselves. But the moment that you stop managing everything, life starts breathing again. And that's the paradox there. The more you release control, the stronger your presence actually becomes. And there's a reason I think that stillness feels like death to most men. And that's because it threatens this illusion of control. But stillness is not the absence of power. Stillness is the birth of power. It's where your actions stop being reactions and start now being responses. It's where you remember that authority doesn't come from control. It comes from congruence. And that's what integrity is. It's power that doesn't have to posture. So if you want to know whether a man is truly confident, I would say watch what he does when things don't go his way. Does he tighten up or does he trust? Does he punish or does he pause? Does he listen or does he lash out? See, confidence can hold tension without collapsing, whereas control cannot. Confidence doesn't need to prove. It doesn't dominate. It demonstrates through consistency and through compassion and through a sense of calm. And that's what separates control from mastering. And that's where we're going to be heading as men. See, we want to be moving away from the illusion that dominance equals direction and away from the false idea that emotion is weakness, right? And we want to move more towards a masculinity that leads with empathy and that listens without ego and that loves without leveraging. And that's what I mean when I talk about redefining S.I.M.P, S-I-M-P, and I made an acronym out of that word saying strength in mastered presence, or power without pretense, direction without dominance. Because the strongest men aren't the ones that control the room. The strongest men are the ones who steady a room. So next time, in tomorrow's episode, we're going to talk about what happens when leadership turns into domination. When men stop guiding and start grasping. And that's where the mask of control finally reveals itself. So that's in episode 9 tomorrow, when leadership becomes domination. I hope you'll join me for that one. But thank you for watching on this snowy day. I'll see you in tomorrow's episode. Bye.